Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
From the gritty streets of Stockton to the UFC octagon, Nate Diaz's journey is one of legend. Known for his fearless style and unapologetic attitude, Diaz quickly became one of MMA's most polarizing figures. But with fame came the inevitable struggles, both inside and outside the cage. The rise and fall of Nate Diaz is a tale of triumph and the brutal reality of life in the spotlight. Let's get right in. Growing up in Stockton, California wasn't easy for Nate Diaz. While his older brother Nick was well aware of their family's struggles, young Nate spent most of his days watching cartoons, blissfully unaware of the harsh realities around him. Their mom worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table, and with their father out of the picture, the Diaz brothers had to learn to be tough early on. The neighborhood they grew up in was rough, with gang activity and violence being everyday realities. Teachers at school had pretty much written Nate off, telling him his best shot at a future was staying out of prison.
I'm waking up 6th grade out my window, 12:30 a.m. On a Friday night, and I'm waking up to all kinds of noise out my window, and all these guys, whoa, and I come outside, and my brother and 20 of the homies from the neighborhood are talking about, we're just at this party, we f*** these dudes at the whole party, we're like, us four were back to back against the wall fighting these motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And everybody's talking about the whole fight. I'm just like sitting there like, wow.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait to fight with you guys somewhere, you know, just right off the bat. I grew up, and everything was every weekend when somebody was fighting.
Can you imagine hearing that as a kid? But sometimes the greatest motivation comes from people telling you what you can't do. And for Nate, those doubts would eventually fuel one of the most remarkable careers in combat sports history. Everything changed when Nick, already dabbling in martial arts, invited his younger brother to join him at the gym. Now, here's the funny part. You know what kept Nate coming back to training? It wasn't the love of the sport, at least not initially. It was the burritos. Yeah, you heard that right. The older guys at the gym would buy him and Nick burritos from a food truck after training. And for two hungry kids, that was enough motivation to keep showing up. But what started as a way to get a free meal turned into something much bigger. Training under Steve Heath, who learned from Cesar Gracie, Nate began to understand the power of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. The idea that a smaller person could control and submit a larger opponent through technique fascinated him.
He doesn't do MMA to be popular. Nick doesn't do MMA to get a pat on the back. Nick doesn't train and fight to get people's approval. Nick does it to survive because he knows this is his one shot.
Before he knew it, Nate had earned his blue belt under Cesar Gracie, and those martial arts sessions became more than just a path to dinner. They became a path to destiny.
Looping right hand, Daly falling, is in trouble.
In 2007, at just 22 years old, Nate stepped into the Ultimate Fighter house. Everyone knew him as Nick's little brother, but he was about to make a name for himself. And boy, did he deliver. Nate didn't just compete, he dominated. The way he handled himself in the house showed a maturity beyond his years, even if his interviews were pure Stockton attitude. His performance on the show was nothing short of remarkable. Submission after submission, including a memorable win over Gray Maynard, showed everyone that this kid from Stockton was the real deal.
In real trouble. Diaz waiting for Evil B to step in.
His grappling skills were sharp, his boxing was improving, and that famous Diaz cardio was already legendary. When he submitted Manny Gamburian in the finale to win the contract, it was clear that the UFC had another special Diaz on their hands. After winning TUF, Nate went on an absolute tear in the UFC, racking up 5 straight wins. Think about that for a second. 8 wins if you count his victories on The Ultimate Fighter. The Diaz brand of fighting was alive and well in the lightweight division. Of high-volume striking and slick submissions was giving opponents fits, and his post-fight interviews were becoming must-see TV.
They're the new king of this now, and it's right here, all right? Gilbert Melendez, Chrome Racing, my boy Chris Avila, Jake Shields, Richard Perez, my team, thank you very much.
But hey, no fighter's journey is without its bumps. Losses to Clay Guida and Joe Stevenson showed that even a Diaz brother could be beaten. These weren't just losses. They were learning experiences that exposed gaps in Nate's game, particularly against strong wrestlers. After a particularly tough loss to Gray Maynard in a rematch, Nate decided to shake things up and move to welterweight. This is where things get interesting. The welterweight experiment? Let's just say it wasn't exactly a success. The fight against Rory MacDonald was particularly eye-opening. MacDonald's size and strength advantage was just too much, and it became clear that welterweight wasn't Nate's optimal division. Sometimes in fighting, like in life, you need to know when to adjust course. Nate did just that, heading back to lightweight where he belonged. Now this is where Nate's story takes a wild turn. Remember when Dana White said Nate Diaz wasn't a needle mover?
The kid makes really good money. And the unfortunate part is he's not a needle mover. His brother is a needle mover. If Nate Diaz was a massive needle mover, he'd be on the phone, we'd be figuring it out, and we'd work it out. He doesn't move the needle.
That's cold, Dana.
Man, how things change. After beating Michael Johnson in 2015, Nate made that legendary call-out of Conor McGregor. You know the one.
Yeah, Conor McGregor, you're taking everything I work for, I'm gonna fight you. You know what's the real fight, what's the real money fight is me.
It was raw, it was real, and it was exactly what the fans wanted to hear. When Rafael dos Anjos pulled out of his fight with McGregor, Nate stepped in on just 11 days' notice. Nobody gave him much of a chance. He was coming off the couch, hadn't trained, and was facing the UFC's biggest star. But on March 5th, 2016, Nate Diaz shocked the world, submitting the seemingly unbeatable McGregor sport, bringing in new fans and showcasing what makes MMA so special. After his legendary bouts with Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz's career began a sharp decline. Despite becoming one of the UFC's biggest stars, his time in the spotlight would be overshadowed by setbacks. Between 2016 and 2019, Nate spent 3 years sidelined due to contract disputes and what he saw as mistreatment by the UFC, robbing him of crucial prime shifted. While the spirit of the old Nate was still present, the results weren't matching up. His fight against Anthony Pettis was a brief highlight, but the turning point came with his loss to Jorge Masvidal for the BMF title. The doctor stoppage due to cuts wasn't just a loss, it signified the toll his brutal fighting style was taking. Nate's decline continued with inconsistent performances, like his bout against Leon Edwards at UFC 263. In the final minute, when Edwards was hurt, Nate chose to taunt instead of taking the opportunity to finish the fight.
What a fight. Oh, right-hand connection from Lawler. Something happened. They wobbled Diaz back to his feet. That's it. Diaz does not return to his feet.
It was entertaining, but it underscored that Nate's priorities had shifted. His cardio advantage seemed to fade, his boxing became slower, and his once dangerous submissions became fewer. When he transitioned to boxing, it only emphasized his fall. The 2023 fight with Jake Paul exposed how far Nate had fallen, as he was outboxed by a YouTuber turned boxer.
The respect of the MMA world with this performance. Nice uppercut from Jake Paul.
The upcoming bout with Jorge Masvidal now feels more like a cash grab than a genuine competitive pursuit, marking a stark contrast to the principles that once defined the Diaz brothers. What makes Nate's decline particularly compelling is that it wasn't just about losing fights, it was about how his strengths turned into weaknesses. The same durability that earned him respect also made him absorb more damage than most. The relentless fighting style that made him unique also made him predictable, and his unwavering attitude led to missed opportunities both inside and outside the cage. Nate Diaz's legacy is one of authenticity and perseverance. He may have had his ups and downs, but his impact on combat sports is undeniable. From his early days in Stockton to becoming a household name, Nate proved that staying true to yourself can take you further than any persona ever could. His story isn't about rising and falling. It's about being real in a world full of fakes. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Drop a comment below with the next fighter you want to hear about. Peace out.